Black women are supposed to bow their heads and cry. So why are you still standing? The patrolman's voice cut through the air like a cracked whip, his hand steady as he pointed a gun at the woman standing alone in the middle of a funeral. Reeds lay around her feet. Orders barked. No reasons given. Her defiance was written in the color of her skin. But what he didn't know, or didn't care to know, was that the woman he just pinned to the earth wasn't some civilian lost in grief. She was General Sarah Langford, a name that echoed through Pentagon halls and command bunkers alike. Decorated, respected, feared even. And this time, the law didn't wrap itself around the badge. It wrapped itself around the truth. Because when a uniform becomes a mask for fear, who dares still speak the name of justice? That morning, Monarch Hill's memorial grounds lay beneath a soft mist, like a breath caught in sorrow. The American flag hung heavy at half-staff, barely stirring in the March breeze. You could hear everything. The crunch of boots over dry grass, the metal click of rifles being adjusted, the soft rustle of veils, the line of black chairs faced the casket draped in folded stars and solemnity. Beneath the branches of a towering sycamore, the family of the fallen sat stiff, like sentinels too proud to bend. Children wore little uniforms. Adults wore medals. Not a cough, not a whisper, only reverence. Then a black SUV slid in from a side path. Quiet, intentional. The rear door opened and a pair of sharp-heeled boots touched the earth, followed by the woman whose very presence made two nearby sentries snap into salute like triggered nerve endings. General Sarah Langford emerged, alone in entourage. No sound, just her and a small black-wrapped urn in her hand, meant to rest beside the casket. Her face, unreadable, her silence, powerful. She walked like a command, not a request. People rose to their feet, not out of fear, but respect, reverence, because they knew they were witnessing something rare, a warrior honoring another. But not everyone stood at the far western perimeter. Officer Dean Curver, the man assigned to oversee the day's security, stepped forward like a shadow looking for trouble. He slammed his palm onto the hood of the SUV. Smack. The sound cracked across the stillness, as disrespectful as a shout in a prayer. A soldier flinched. The flagpole slipped from his hand and clattered to the ground. Silence. Again, thicker now. Tense that a child in the front row leaned toward his mother. "Is that man yelling at her?" he asked, eyes wide. The mother said nothing, just squeezed the fabric of her dress until her knuckles blanched white. Sarah didn't flinch. She simply looked at Carver, first at the red welt on his palm, then up to his face, hard, ashen, unforgiving. He moved into her path like a rusted gate. "I thought you were with the choir," he sneered. His eyes trailed over the stars on her shoulder like they were costume jewelry, not earned steel. The two guards nearby exchanged glances. Neither moved. Sarah calmly pulled a leather wallet from her coat, revealed her military ID, and held it with textbook clarity. She didn't speak, didn't have to. Curver didn't reach for it. He didn't even lean closer. He just chuckled low, bitter. They fake these real well nowadays, especially the ones trying so hard to belong. Someone in the seated rows made a sound, a clenched breath, a stifled sob. No one could say. Still, Sarah's face did not shift. She tucked the ID away. Took one step forward toward the casket. Carver's arm shot out again. Blocking her, he leaned in, voice now a venomous whisper. "You ain't earned nothing here." But the earth itself felt like it had stopped breathing. "You can't go through." Carver's arm remained fixed like a barricade forged from arrogance. "This is a restricted ceremonial zone. You're not on the approved list." From one of the back rows, an older veteran shifted. His lapel bore the tarnished cross of a long-retired Army captain. He tilted his head toward the man beside him and murmured, just loud enough for doubt to awaken. "Are we burying a soldier today, or burying honor itself?" The whisper barely traveled, but it landed like a spark in a dry field. Those who heard it didn't move, but their shoulders tensed. Not from fear of Carver, but from fear of the truth settling inside them in a one step forward. Not to challenge, not to defend. Because they didn't know which would fall harder, the woman or the system standing on her back. The sky deepened to a grayer hue. The flag atop the casket fluttered once, briefly, as if startled, then fell still again, a quiet kneel in mourning. General Sarah Langford remained rooted. Her shoes nearly touched Carver's boots, her breath calm, eye in her eyes. Not rage, not even pride, something colder, something ancient, a refusal, the kind that didn't ask for permission. Carver blinked. Just once. His voice came back, this time less steady, more performative. "I have the right to ask," he muttered, chest rising. "And you have no right to respond. Without command's authorization, you're not allowed here. That don't think those stars make you untouchable. We're here to protect honor." He gestured toward the ribbons and medals on Sarah's chest. Not as respect, but like swatting at flies. His voice was dry. No conviction that it wasn't what he said, that it was the fact that he didn't believe a word of it himself. A soft breath, nearly a sigh, escaped from the left side of the burial site. The flag bearer lifted his pole again, straightened it with practiced grace, but his hands trembled. The child in the front row was still staring, still watching the woman who hadn't been allowed to reach the casket. He didn't understand protocol, but he understood when someone was being pushed away from where they belonged. Sarah didn't move, that didn't advance, that didn't retreat. She turned slightly, not to face Carver, but to acknowledge the casket. The urn in her hand, still wrapped in cloth, remained clutched like something sacred or something forsaken out of man, once under her command, now reduced to ashes and memory, and being denied both by someone who couldn't see past rank or skin, and one interrupted them, and one challenged Carver. Not because they agreed, but because they'd been trained too long to comply. And inside each stare was not regret, but relief, like someone watching a chain break that they no longer had the strength to cut. Themselves, that the fallout wasn't instant, but it came to a grainy video, barely 2 minutes long, captured on the phone of a young private standing 3 rows back, began to circulate. Not on the news, not in headlines, but through encrypted channels, through veterans' boards, through law enforcement forums. Whispers before outrage, silent revulsion, an unspoken detoxification that needed no official orders, yet was understood across every office with a flag on the wall. Carver's name wasn't blacklisted, it just vanished in no ceremony. No reprimand. Just a quiet erasure, like chalk wiped from a board after the lesson had failed to land, that he wouldn't be missed. Because somewhere, deep down, the men and women watching knew. This wasn't about chain of command. This wasn't about protocol. That it was about someone finally saying no to fear disguised as structure, and yes to something heavier, the weight of dignity. This ending transforms the message into something unforgettable, both a personal reckoning and a cultural milestone, echoing through generations that we do this not for fame, that we do this because too many truths have been drowned out by what's easier to accept. And if you're still here, if you're still listening, then you're a part of the reason we never step back and never will. That 1 year later, the name Dean Carver no longer appeared in any search results. His archived interviews, once shown in military academies and police leadership courses, have been quietly removed or reclassified. His lectures on authority and compliance had become case studies of manipulation, not even for analysis, but as red flags, warning signs of rot dressed as structure. Point one military ethics professor, when asked what caused the shift, answered plainly, "We started listening to silence." At Monarch Hills, the same cemetery where it began, a new annual rite had formed. Unannounced, unplanned, but never unattended. Each year, on the first Sunday of March, people came. Veterans, children, teachers, janitors, wounded medics, mothers who had once buried sons in that same sacred soil. They didn't bring banners, they didn't chant, they stood. Some held urns, some brought letters, some wore nothing but black. But all stood, upright, silent, present, and music played. But the sound of boots shifting in the grass echoed louder than any speech. And there, always toward the far edge, near the old oak that had once sheltered General Sarah Langford's final salute, someone would place a simple white card each year. It never said her name. It only bore a phrase, handwritten anew every time, "For the day we didn't retreat." and the days we never will. Meanwhile, inside a narrow federal cell, Carver now existed like a chapter removed from the book, but still whispered about in margins. He spoke less each day, not because he had found peace, but because no one listened anymore, not even himself. His cell walls bore no plaques that no visitors signed in. And when an intern in a national journal mistakenly submitted a proposal citing Carver's old doctrines, the editorial board replied in a single line, "We do not publish systems built on fear." At the Pentagon's West Gate, where the quiet engraving now sat beneath the Department of Defense's motto, new recruits still stopped. Some passed it quickly. But others, the ones who knew loss, who had been ignored or silenced or dismissed, would linger if they'd run a finger over the metal as if to steady their own resolve. The line had no bold font and no signature. Just this: if one day you find yourselves at gunpoint, remember I did not step back. There was never a statue for Sarah Langford, never a street named after her. She declined all awards, refused every biography, and never again wore her uniform in public. But her presence remained, stitched into the quiet fabric of those who chose dignity over spectacle. She did not leave behind orders. She left behind something more dangerous: memory. Not the kind carved in a stone, but the kind engraved into conscience. And so we say this not for drama, not for views, but for you. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you carry, maybe you've been silenced. Maybe you've been told to bow, to comply, to vanish. Maybe you felt alone in rooms full of people with louder voices and lesser hearts. But hear us now. If you stood once, if you stayed silent not out of fear, but out of strength, if you refused to let the world rewrite your truth, you are part of this legacy. The quiet ones, the unbending ones, the ones whose names may not be spoken, but whose actions will outlive the noise. So if you felt this story, tell us what kept you standing. Tell us what you refuse to forget, because every truth shared becomes a thread in the fabric that wraps around those still searching for courage. Like, comment, share, yes, but more than that, remember, not everyone needs to bleed for justice. Sometimes we just need enough people brave enough to not step back. The system did not break. It was redefined by those who refused to kneel.